say that. Okay. Right, everybody. This year, okay, I decided to stop with Shoftim. This year, we're going to discuss the personalities in Sefer Shmuel. Okay, so we're in luck because the beginning of Shmuel is the Haftarah for the first day of Rosh Hashanah, and we're going to discuss not the personalities necessarily in the first chapter of Sefer Shmuel, but we're going to speak about the Tefillah of Chanah, which perhaps is the most powerful of tefillot which we found in the Tanakh. Now let's start off from the sources. Okay, in the source sheet you've got in front of you, Mishnah says the following: Pesach, Orim Parshat Moadot Shel Torat Kohanim. On Pesach we read Parshat Emor, Atzeret Shivat Shavuot, Rosh Hashanah, Chodesh Hashvi Bechad LaChodesh. That means on Rosh Hashanah we read about Rosh Hashanah. That was the opinion of the Mishnah. That means we learn about Parshat Emor in Vayikra Perek Chaf Gimel. That was the opinion of the Mishnah. Later on, Amoraim changed it, or the other Tanaim changed it. And what do they say? No. Rosh Hashanah, says the Gemara in line number 15, Rosh Hashanah b'chodesh Shvi'i, Maftirin, Naftara is from Ben Yakir Ephraim. Second, what we read the second day, chapter 32 in Sefer Yirmiyahu. They Shomrim were who said, Hashem pakad et Sarah. We read the birth of Yitzchak. Maftirim b'Chana. We read Chana. Ba'idna, and nowadays, Ikatrei Yomi, that there are 2 days. Yom HaKama, Yesh Omrim. First day, we read the birth of Yitzchak and the birth of Shmuel. And the second day, we read Elokim Nisait Avraham, Akedah, Maftirim Ben Yakiri. Now everything changed. What's so special about Rosh Hashanah is that the Amoraim changed the Kriyat Torah from the Mishnah. They didn't feel that the speaks about Rosh Hashanah had anything to do with the neshama of Rosh Hashanah. The fact that we'll read the Chodesh Hashvi'i Bechad LaChodesh doesn't have any impact on your neshama. Therefore, they decided to change it. They decided to change it to the birth of Yitzchak, because Yitzchak was born on Rosh Hashanah. And Hashem remembered. And also the Akedah, because that is the whole concept of Zichronot on Rosh Hashanah. But we have a fascinating insight into the statement of Rashi. Rashi says the following in line number 20. Maftirim b'Chana. We read about the story of Chanah on the first day of Rosh Hashanah. Lefi shepidata hayta b'Rosh Hashanah. Because Hashem remembered her on Rosh Hashanah. It means her prayer was on Rosh Hashanah, she davened on Rosh Hashanah, and she gave birth to Shmuel because of prayer on Rosh Hashanah. But Rashi comes along and says, Akedat Yitzchak, the Akedah of Yitzchak, says Rashi, Mazkirim, Hashem should remember that. What's quite amazing is, why do we read the birth of Yitzchak on Rosh Hashanah? Now, Rashi doesn't say that. All Rashi says is only the birth of Shmuel has an important part. Also, we know that Yitzchak was remembered, Sarah was remembered on Rosh Hashanah. Says the Tziv in his Erush on the Torah, V'lo piresh hacha b'ikar kriya Hashem pakad et Sarah. Why doesn't Rashi say the same thing? We read the birth of Yitzchak because she was remembered on Rosh Hashanah. There's the Netziv Ishum. Be'emet אין בזה טעם להוציא עיקר העניין לראש השנה משום זה. That's not a true reason. The fact that Yitzchak was born doesn't make any difference. Ilotei ma'achi, if that is the case, בפסח יציאת מצרים מבית האסורים, we know that in one opinion, Yosef went out of the, what's it called, out of prison on Pesach. Vadai, the reason is, דלא מטעם זה קוראים בלידת יצחק. We don't speak about the birth of Yitzchak because that happened on Rosh Hashanah. Ella, says the Netziv, Mishum di Yitzchak mashma'o. The word Yitzchak is in actual fact an abbreviation of 3 words. First one is mashma'o yatsa chok le'olam. A statute came out to the world. Yitzchak is an abbreviation of 2 words. Yatsa chok. What was the Yatsa chok? What does the word chok mean? Says the Netziv. The word chok, it doesn't only mean a statute, it means a formal idea. Erush mezone, food. Yitzchak has got the dimension of food, parnasa. Avodah mekoro haya Yitzchak. The concept of avodat Hashem, parallel to avodat ha'adama, is parallel to Yitzchak. Yitzchak, says the Netziv, is the source of the relationship between man and God when it comes to do with food. Now, what does that mean? Mishum hachi, because of that, Rosh Hashanah, Chok L'Yisrael hu, on Rosh Hashanah, which we speak about the Chukim of Am Yisrael, Rim B'Leidato. B'Viura Torah, and in my explanation on the Torah, I explained it in a better way. Now, understand this. We're now going to speak about, first of all, the Gemara. Look in the Gemara in line number 50. Very famous Gemara. Kol mezonotav shel Adam tuvim lo mirosh Hashanahvad Yom HaKippurim. All the mezonot which a person is going to get in the coming year, all the parnosa, the stock exchange, everything is dependent on the 10 days from Rosh Hashanah to Yom Kippur. Chutz mi'otzaat Shabbatot v'otzaat Yom Tov, except what you spend on Shabbos and Yom Tov, otzaat banav leTalmud Torah, and what you spend on education for your children. Im pachat, if it was less, bless him. He didn't give enough. Mosif, we give him. Amar lo Rabbi Avau. Rabbi Avau, one of the great Amoraim of the first generation of the Amoraim, said, "My kra'ah." Where do we learn this from? Ik'u chodesh shofar, kese liyom chagenu. We say in the pasuk, and we say it every Thursday, and we say it before Shmona Esrei on Rosh Hashanah. Kuba chodesh shofar, blow in the month of the shofar, kese, when it is covered. Ezu chag she'achodesh mitkaseh bo, which chag the moon tide is hidden. Avi omer ze Rosh Hashanah. Uchtiv, ichok Yisrael hu, mishpat Elokei Yaakov. My mashma, what does the word chok mean? Lishna mezone. Uchtiv, v'achlu et chukam asher natan lehem Paro. They ate their portions which Paro gave them. Every single year on Rosh Hashanah, Kodesh Baruch Hu divides up his portions. How much each person is going to get. Chok L'Yisrael, on this day, when you blow the shofar, Hashem is going to divide up the geld, the money, amongst nations and amongst the individuals. This is the idea, says the Netziv, of Rosh Hashanah, of Yitzchak. Now let's go up to the Netziv. Line number 32. Before Before I explain and we read the words of the Nativ, I'm going to give a short introduction. The only thing which Yitzchak ever does in his life, is that he works on the land of Eretz Israel. He's married by his father, Shidduchim. He's the Akedah. Put on an altar. Everything is done to him. He is the most passive of all the forefathers. The most passive one. Even the bracha which he gives to Yitzchak and to Yaakov and Esav is a shmuchel. He's not even aware of it. He doesn't know what's going on around him. There's only one chapter in Parashat Bereshit which speaks about what Yitzchak does, and that is he's fighting over the wells, water. That's why Yitzchak is also an abbreviation of the four names of Eretz Israel: Yud Israel, Tzadi Tzvi, Chet Chaim, and Kuf Eretz HaKodesh. The four names of Eretz Israel. The only thing which Yitzchak does in his life is he fights the land of Israel. And the work he does on the land of Israel, the Torah speaks about how much he managed to get out of the land every single year, how much wheat came out, etc., etc., etc. On the other hand, Yitzchak is the forefather who's the korban. He's in actual fact a sacrifice. He represents the world of tefillah, prayer. Prayer versus avodat ha'adamah, work on the land, versus worshipping Hashem. How much do you work for the sake of Hashem? Now, it says that is the introduction, Rabotai, which we're now going to speak about how the Netziv develops it. Why do we read the birth of Yitzchak on Rosh Hashanah? Because Yitzchak is the semer, he's the symbol of this meeting, of this connection between our prayers on Rosh Hashanah, which is for mezonot, parnasa, health, and what's it called? And what HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to give you. Says the Netziv, Yitzchak, Yadua, line number 32. Yadua, שהוא על שם הצחוק. ודוד המלך says, ושבועתו לישחק. Anybody who's ever read the brocha, which we say on the Brit Milah, will know the brocha of Yitz, where we say after the Brit Milah, the statement is Ushvuato leYischak, laughing, schok. Omnam Chazal Rabba Osifu Upeshu Yitzchak Yatza Chok Leolam, ראשי תיבות of חוק, צדי חוק, יצא חוק. באמת יש להבין מזה גופה, שדוד אמר ברוח הקודש פעם ישחק, in Tehillim it's written, Ushvuato leYischak, and in Divrei Hayomim it's written, Amaroto Amar, Ushvuato leYitzchak. Where does this appear? If anybody notices, every single day we say, after Baruch She'omar or the Minhag Sfarad, we say Hodu. Hodu is in actual fact a section which is mentioned in two places in the Tanakh. The first one is in Tehillim, and the second one is in Divrei Hayomim. They are parallel. They are exactly the same. We say the one from Divrei Hayomim. If you compare it to the one in Tehillim, you will see there is one difference. The name Yitzchak. In Tehillim, the parallel, it's written, Shvuato leYitzchak. Sorry, in Divrei Hayomim it's written leYitzchak, and in Tehillim it's written Ushvuato leYitzchak. The sin and the tzadi interchange. They are both sounds which are from the tongue. S. Please take note. S, z. They are the same. And that's why, for instance, if you want to know the word for a window, it's called Zohar. It's also called Zohar. Both of them are letting in light, etc., etc. These three consonants are interchangeable. The tzadi, the zayin, and the s, samach or the sin. They are both consonants which are created from the teeth and the tongue together. Okay? Now, let's go, and that's why people who are, what's the name for it? What's it called? I've forgotten anyway. A lisp. People who lisp can't say the tzadi, zayin, samach properly. Please take note. Lisping is because they have the inability to create, differentiate between shin, sin, tzadi, zayin. Sh, s, z, z. That's the word Yitzchak, and that's why it's interchangeable. Yitzchak and Yitzchak. Now, says the Netziv, Mizeh muchach in line number 35, Mizeh muchach, yesh b'zeh shtei kavanot, two ideas. Ba'amar oto Hashem, and he says the same name, lefi ha'inyan. U'mitchila yesh lahavin perush yatsa chok le'olam. That means, yatsa, the partition, the way Hashem parts out and gives out his division to the world. Shehu lishna de mazone. V'hainu mishum de Yitzchak haya yesod leparnasa hashgacha pratit. Yitzchak is the symbol of parnasa from direct divine providence. Ve'era akadosh baruch hu b'leidat Yitzchak. And Hashem showed the miracle of the birth of Yitzchak in this way, because Yitzchak now becomes the prime person, the prime individual, the prime forefather who has this connection between miracles, divine providence, and creativity. Yitzchak is the Av. That's why the Netziv says we read the birth of Yitzchak. We read the birth of Yitzchak on Rosh Hashanah. Therefore, the principal idea of Rosh Hashanah is tefillah vis-a-vis what Hashem gives you. Yom Hadin on Rosh Hashanah, speak out what Hashem is going to give you on Rosh Hashanah, l'chaim v'lo l'mavet, l'ra'a v'lo l'sova, etc., etc., etc. That's the day when HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives out his gifts. Now, the one who developed the idea like this is Chanah. And that's why we have the birth of Yitzchak, which is in actual fact in a hint way, not direct. Now comes the direct way, Chanah. Now, says a Chazal, following. Hani Sheva de Shabta, 7 brachot on Shabbos, neged me, line number 55. Amar Rabbi Chalafta ben Shaul, neged Sheva kolot she'amar David Amalamayim. We say, that's why we say the tefillah, tefillah on Shabbos, Yizvol David, Havul Hashem b'nei Elim, Havul Hashem kavod va'oz. There are 7 kolot there. Hani Teisha de Rosh Hashanah, the 9 brachot on Rosh Hashanah, the 3 first ones, the 3 end ones, and Oyot Zechonot v'Shofarot. Keneged mi, says Chazal, Amar Rabbi Yitzchak Demin Kartigan, Keneged Teisha Askarot, She'amra Chanah b'tfilata. The 9 times the name of Hashem is mentioned in her prayer, which we'll read later on. 9 times HaKadosh Baruch Hu is mentioned. Amar Mar, Rosh Hashanah, Nifkeda, Sarah, Rachel, v'Chana. On Rosh Hashanah, Hashem brought pregnancy to 3 women, Sarah, Rachel, v'Chana. Perhaps the most fascinating idea on Rosh Hashanah is the idea of women davening. Women are the central theme of Rosh Hashanah. Take note. The first day we speak about Sarah and Chanah. The second day we speak about Rachel. So we have Sarah, Rachel and Chanah, and Rachel mevaka al baneha, me'ana lehinachem. Then we have one more woman who's an integral part of Rosh Hashanah. That is the mother of Sisra. Tosfot say we blow 100 kolot Rosh Hashanah because of the 100 kolot which Sisra's mother cried. Sisra's mother, she was crying after she heard that her son had been killed. Mea iyot, 100 sounds. And that's why we have 100 kolot. Women are the central theme. The davening of women are the central theme of Rosh Hashanah. Rabbi say, not men. Forget about the men on Rosh Hashanah. Women. Who is the central person who prays? The central person who prays is Chanah. Now, let's go through how many times there are expressions of Chanah, of prayer. Vehi marat nafesh, titpalel al Hashem uvachot tivkeh. Tido neder, etc., etc. She makes a neder. Vayehi irbeta litpalel ifnei Hashem. Medaberet al liba. Eshpoch et nafshi. Sha'alti meimo. Litpalel el Hashem. Itpalalti. Titpalel Chanah. You have 5 times the word tefillah. Sentence. Pasuk Yud, Pasuk Yud, Pasuk Chavav, Pasuk Chavzayin, Pasuk Aleph. You have Medaberet al liba. She's speaking to herself. She's davening to Hashem. And Eshpoch et nafshi. He pours out her soul. And she expresses a question. Therefore, Chazal see Chanah as the pinnacle of prayer. The pinnacle. What does Chazal say? The beginning of 5th parak of Brachot. Amar Rav Hamnuna, line number 75. Ama hilcheta gvurta. So many halachot, important halachot, mashma mehanikra Chanah, which we can learn from the psukim, which speaks about the tefillah of Chanah. Chanah medaberet al liba. Mikan mitpalel. You're speaking to your heart. Your heart is speaking. Sfateha na'ot. Mikan mitpalel. Not something only which you think about. You have to express it. You have to use words. It's just not remain in your thoughts. You have to have the expression, words. You translate your thoughts into words. A person shouldn't scream out that everybody should hear. No, Rabotai. A person speaks quietly. Hashem listens Nobody else's. It's this dialogue, it's this personal dialogue between me and HaKadosh Baruch Hu. ועכשווה הלילה שיכורה, מכאן ששיכור עשו בתפילה. אני האישה הנקצבת עמך בזה. אמר רבי יהושע בן לוי, מכאן שאסור לשב בתוך 4 אמות של תפילה. If somebody is davening, don't stand in front of him. Because that way takes away his kavanah, etc., etc., etc. The Chanah becomes the example of prayer. Let's just carry on one more stage. Let's look at how Chazal understood the prayer of Chanah. The prayer of Chanah is the following. Titpalel Chanah. This is in the 2nd chapter. מכאן אנו למדים שנשים חייבות בתפילה. Women have to daven. שכן חנה הייתה מתפללת י"ח ברכות. In her prayer, in her final prayer, born, uses 18 expressions. 18 expressions. 9 times the name of Hashem, 18 expressions of praising Hashem. Rama karni b'Hashem, Magen Avraham. Hashem meimitu mechaye, mechaye meisim. Ein kadosh kashem, el kadosh. Kel deot Hashem, achonen. Nichshalim avonam azru chayil. Those who fail in their sins, it's strong again. Harotze b'tshuva. Morid Shaol, somebody HaKadosh Baruch Hu puts down, perhaps lifts him. Why? Because he's Amar Bel Isloach. Samachti b'shuatecha, Bal Yisrael. Kimi me'afar dal. People of Corona, down, all alone. Rofei cholim. Tzveim balechem, v'varech hashanim. Raglei chasidav yishmor makabez nitchei Yisrael. Hashem yadin afsei aretz, ohev tzedakah u'mishpat. ורשעים בחושך ידמו מחניע זידים, ייתן עוז למלכו בוני ירושלים. דרם כרם משיחו את צמח דוד, אין צור כאלוקינו שומע תפילה, על תרבות דברו גבוהה שאותך לבדך ביראה נעבוד, ברכה ומודים. יצא עתק מפיכם, הטוב שמך ולכן להודות, ייתן עוז למלכו, עושה השלום. 18 expressions Chazal see as the basis of all the 18 brachot which we have. So we have 3 dimensions of Chanah. We have pouring out of her soul. Hashem answers the prayers. We have the laws which we learn from Chanah. Then finally, how Chazal puts up the makeup, the 18 brachot, the Shmona Esrei, because of the 18 expressions of Chanah. Questions? Anybody have any questions, please? We're going deeper and deeper now. This is just the framework of the Tefillah of Chanah. If there are any questions, please, you can write up in chat, whatever you want. I've got chat on. Okay, and I'll answer. Let's go one stage further. Chanah היא מדברת על ליבה. Chanah speaks to her heart. What was her prayer? Amar Rabbi Elazar, Mishum Rabbi Yossi ben Zimra, Liskei liba, something which was deep in her heart. Amra lefanav, Ribono shel olam, Kol ma shebarata be'isha, whatever you created with for a woman, Lo barata davar acher levatala. Hashem didn't create it stam. Einayim lirot. Eyes to see. Oznayim lishmoa. Ear is to listen. Chotem, nose, lariach. Pe, ledaber. Yadayim, לעשות בהם מלאכה. רגליים, להלוך בהם. ידיים, להעניק בהם. My breasts, in order that I can feed my child. ידיים הללו. My breasts, שנתת על ליבי, which you put on your heart, on my heart, lama. Lo lahanik bahem, not to be able to feed my child. Ainli ben ba'anik bahem. This was her prayer, the way Chazal see what she was asking. Now, what's the depth of this prayer? What is it? What is the depth of this? What she asks from HaKadosh Baruch Hu? Ezra took a fascinating insight. A fascinating insight. Mi sheyesakel otzem hashgachat Hashem yitbarach aprati. Somebody who, let's say, will close his eyes from the idea that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is divine individual providence. Yachol litot, make a mistake. Ekoch habriya yelech b'klalut. That the creation goes in a general manner, in a macro style. Nivra lifamim, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu will sometimes create something, some davar shelo yemale tafkido, something which has got no purpose. Means if you look in the macro world, you'll find perhaps what? Something, then Hashem created it. This is a famous story of David HaMelech, why he created a mosquito, why he created, goodness knows what, flies. Why does HaKadosh Baruch Hu do it? Anybody who looks at this doesn't understand the purpose of each individual creation. Omnam, says Rav Kook, mistakel yafeh askil, she'ein shum mikre ba'olam. No accident. Chol nivra, anything which is created, nivra tzivyono, was created in its style, in its special way. Lashlim tafkido, to fulfill its purpose. Im lifamim, and if sometimes a person can't fill up his purpose, there's some reason for it. Or mitzad chet kadum, or perhaps the sun, or to awaken somebody to daven. But al kol panim, kol davek hashgachat Hashem yitbarach al-yonah. Everything is connected to the way HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world. Inei ha'ish va'isha yatsu mitipus echad b'yitzira. Man and woman were both created by Hashem. Im haya koach ha'yitzira olech b'chlalut. If we are to say that there is a macro thing, b'li להקפיד על הפרטים, היה ראוי שימצא באישה איזה דבר שרק בא מצד כוח היצירה המינית. אף על פי שבפרטות אין תועלת. One would think that the reason HaKadosh Baruch Hu created breasts is that a woman would be, in inverted commas, 20 times over, sexy. Anybody who looks at the general thing, the difference between a man and a woman is that a woman was created sexy in order to make a man want to be with her. Says Rav Kook, "V'lo matzinu ken." It is a mistake. U'adin b'chol ha'pratim shel habruim im u'bekishronot ha'meduyakim lefi erko u'metziuto. Everything is exact. Mizeh nilmad dat hashgacha pratit. In kein gam be'ishim, every single individual hashgacha pratit al kol davar v'inyan. Al ken, therefore, says Chanah, because I know that HaKadosh Baruch Hu created every single thing in a person's body for a purpose, and every individual is for a purpose. Therefore, she says, since breasts were created not to make a woman, in inverted commas, 20 times over sexy, there is a purpose, because otherwise, the baby wouldn't be able to live. And there is this special connection between mother and child. What creates the special connection between mother and child is the fact that the only source besides the child coming out from the mother It's something more than that. Even when the child is alive, he cannot live without his mother. And therefore she says, ודאי שנבראת תכונה זו לצורך. על כן, ראוי להתאמץ בתפילה, להוציא השלמות המוכנה מן הכוח אל הפועל. I'm asking Hashem, she says, give me that power of feeding my child. What Chanah is telling us here, that's the most important message. Every single human being in the world, and every part and parcel of the human being, there is a purpose. There is a purpose. She wants to express it in a particular way. But this is just a mashal. It's just a parable, something far greater. But if Nehemiah Taylor was born in a certain year, to a certain parent, in a certain country, then there's a purpose. Says the Mishnah in Masechet Sanhedrin. Anybody who's ever read the fascinating book of Rav Soloveitchik, Yemei Zikaron, Days of Memory, this is taken from him, what I'm going to now say to you. And here Rav Kook, Rav Soloveitchik meet. Mishnah. Ketzad ma'imim taidim. How did they used to threaten, line 125, how did they used to threaten witnesses to tell the truth? On witnesses who were testifying on capital punishment. You used to bring them into the court. To threaten them. Shema tomru, lest you will say, Omed umishmua. Perhaps you, imagining to yourself, you're not sure, circumstantial evidence. Perhaps you heard, with these witnesses, we heard them from a person whom you can trust. Or perhaps you thought we wouldn't check you up. Line number 130. Monetary matters are not like capital punishment. Monetary matters, אדם נותן ממון ומתכפר לו. דיני נפשות, דמו ודם זרעותיו תלויים בו עד סוף העולם. When you are testifying against somebody who's liable capital punishment, remember, it's his blood and the blood of all future generations that you're trying to cut off. Future generations are dependent on your testimony. If you're telling the truth or you're not telling the truth. שכן מצינו, שרג, אין שרג את אחיו, שנאמר, דמי אחיך צועקים. The blood of your brother is crying out in the plural. What does it mean? It should be, דם אחיך צועק. The blood of Hevel is crying out. No, the Torah says. Hashem says to him, it's in plural. The bloods of your brother are screaming out. אינו מת דם אחיך, אלא דמי אחיך, דמו ודם זרעותיו. דבר אחר, דמי אחיך שהיה דמו מושלך על עצים ועל אבנים. לפיכך, now comes the crux of the matter. נברא אדם יחידי. הקדוש ברוך הוא created one man, ללמדך. שכל העמד נפש אחת מישראל מעלה עליו הכתוב, כאילו איבד עולם מלא. Somebody who destroys a soul is as if he killed the whole world. וכל המקיים נפש אחת מישראל מעלה עליו הכתוב, כאילו קיים מלא. ומפני שלום הבריות, שלא יאמר אדם לחברו, הקדוש ברוך הוא created many people, what would have happened? שלא יאמר אדם לחברו, אבא גדול מאביך. My father's greater than your dad. What was in schools? Adam Arishon was one person. There was no competition. ושלא יהיו מינים הרבה רשיות בשמיים. ולהגיד גדלותו של הקדוש ברוך הוא. שאדם תובע כמה מטבעות בחותם אחד. A person can make many coins and they'll all be similar. ומלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא, טבע כל אדם בחותמו של אדם הראשון. ואין אחד מהם דומה לחברו. Not one person is similar to another one. לפיכך, כל אחד ואחד חייב לומר, בשבילי נברא העולם. Because of me, the world was created. So therefore, let's go to one stage. If there would have been a Nehemiah Taylor 500 years ago, exactly with the same DNA, exactly the same makeup, exactly the same logic, and exactly the same, I'm an exact copy of who I was 500 years ago, I cannot say Bishvili Nivra Ha'olam. You can't say that. Why not? Because if there's an exact copy of me, then Kodesh Baruch Hu didn't create the world for me. The very fact that every single individual is special, and there was nobody like you from the time of creation of the world till the end of the world, means to say that you have a special tafkid. That's what Ashkacha Pratit means. Ashkacha Pratit in actual means every part of my body, and every part of my essence is special. And there was nothing like it before, and there will never will be. If there is, can't say Bishvili Nivra Olam. That is what Chanah says. If I have something special, there is a utility for it. If I'm here in the world at a special age and a special time, a special year, then I have a special job to do. There is a certain tafkid on me. That's the first message of Chanah. When Chanah goes to HaKadosh Baruch Hu and says to him, I want a son, it's because only I can give this world a shmur. Nobody else will give away. Only I can. And if I have breasts, and I've got the ability to feed this special person who's given me Shmuel. That is what a person does for Rosh Hashanah. That is the essence of the tefillah on Rosh Hashanah. Am I fulfilling my purpose or not? That is what Hashem is judging a person on Rosh Hashanah. He's judging a person on Rosh Hashanah what parnasah he's going to have, and is that person fulfilling a specific purpose? And on that, he's judged. Now let's go one stage further. That is Chanah shouting out to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, begging HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Right, that's stage number one. Okay, now, let me just make it bigger. 1 minute. Sorry, hold on. Are there any questions? Please. Oh, are there any questions? Please, anybody can speak whatever you want. This is the essence of Rosh Hashanah. The essence. Anybody got anything? Please do. Don't be shy. You can ask to unmute, please. Nothing. Okay. Let me go stage one further. Next part, which I want to speak about, the other side of Chanah. Other side of Chanah is following. Is Shira. 10 shirot ne'emru ba'olam. Line number 145. 10 songs were said in this world. Beginning of Shira Shirim. Shira Rishona, first song, was said by Adam Arishon. Et shenimcha lo avono. Va yom HaShabbat again alav. On the day when Adam Arishon sinned, Hashem forgave him, and then came Shabbos. Miyad tachetiv amar Mizmor Shir Liyom HaShabbat. Mizmor Shir Liyom HaShabbat is the song which was written by Adam Harishon. Next one. שירה שנייה. אמר משה בני ישראל, בעת שקרא להם אדון העולם, את ים סוף. הלכו כולם ואמרו יחדיו, ואמרו שירה, כמו שנאמר, אז ישיר משה. שירה שלישית, the third song. אמר בני ישראל, בעת שניתנה להם באר מרים, כמו שכתוב, אז ישיר ישראל. שורה רביעית, this week's parsha. אמר משה הנביא, שהגיע זמנו להיפטר מן העולם. הוכיח בית ישראל, כמו שכתוב, עלינו השמיים ואדברה. It's a song, כתבו לי את השירה הזאת. השם says to משה רבינו, תל עם ישראל האזינו. שירה חמישית, אמר יהושע בן נון, כשיצא למלחמה בגבעון, when he went out to fight in Givon against Ai, עמדו לו השמש והירח, and the sun and the moon stopped for 36 hours. עצרו, לומר שירה, פתח פיו, אמר שירה. He then got up and said a song to Hashem, כמו שכתוב, אז ידבר יהושע אל השם. שירה שישית, אמרו ברק ודבורה, יום שנתן השם סיסרא, עת חילו, ביד בני ישראל, כמו שכתוב, הששר דבורה, דבורה סינג. שירה שביעית, the seventh song, אמרה חנה, בעת שניתן לה בן את השם, כמו שכתוב, תתפלל חנה ברוח נבואה, song. שירה שמינית, אמר דוד המלך, על כל הניסים שעשה לו, פתח פיו. שירה תשיעית, אמר שלמה המלך. שירה עשירית, עתידים לומר בני הגלות. 10 songs. Chanah is the 7th one. Chanah teaches us how to beg. How to beg. מדברת על ליבה. She begs. She teaches us how to beg from HaKadosh Baruch Hu things. She teaches us how to shout in a quiet way. She also knows how to thank Hashem. Very few people have the ability to do these things. That is the objective of the Tefillat Chanah. Chanah, the beggar, the one who teaches us, ask from Hashem things. She teaches us how to praise Hashem. Then finally, let's go to the last stage. The last stage is why Chazal see that she teaches us how to daven on Rosh Hashanah. 9 askarot. 9 times she mentions the name of Hashem in her final prayer, in her Shirah. The question is, why the number 9? What's so special about 9? Let's look at it. It's the only time in the year where we have 9 brachot. We either have 18 or we have 7. Yom Kippur, we have 7. We only have 7 brachot. Shabbos, we have 7. Rosh Hashanah, we have 9. Malchuyot, Zichronot, and Shofarot, we have 9. Now, what's so special about the number 9? And Chazal wanted to teach us. What does she teach? What does it teach us? Now, again, a letter from Rav Kook, a fascinating explanation. L'umat klal harabim. When we speak about Inyan, we speak about the number 10. 10 creates another set of numbers, new unit. Until then, we are units. לעומת כלל הרבים, שהוא מתייחס במספר 10, שהוא התחלת הכלל, מתייחס היחיד, של כל אחד ואחד מהרבים במספר 9. The lost of the units is number 9. Therefore, we want to speak about each individual. We use 9. 9 is the symbol of the individual. Once you move over 10, you become a minion. Until then, each one is an individual. And until you have 10 individuals, you can't create a cloud. You can't create 10 people to daven. Each one then is an individual. Therefore, there's no difference between one person, 2 people, 3 people, 4 people, 5 people. Because until you get to 10, we are all individuals. Okay, therefore, שביקשה, okay, חנה, שביקשה שיעשה השם יתברך חפצה פרטי, יעשה נס לצורך יחיד למעלה מדרך הטבע הכללי ביחס אליה. When we're speaking about individuals, we always speak about Hashem doing miracles to Klal Yisrael. Look what's written in the Torah. You're going to have food, you're going to have, they're all written in the plural. The brachot of HaKadosh Baruch Hu are always given to a people. They aren't given to an individual. Until we see, Ramban says, there's no such thing. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is angry with Am Yisrael, and on this certain person, he's going to put a cloud there, the rain. That's not the ways of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Chanah is the one who teaches us, yes, there are miracles for the individual. There are miracles for the individual. HaKadosh Baruch Hu changes the laws of nature, individuals. Lachen, therefore, שביקשה חנה, line 165, חנה כשביקשה השם יתברך חפצה פרטית, her own personal desire, ויעשה נס לצורך יחיד למעלה, מדרך הטבע הכללי ביחס אליה, הזכירה 9 אזכרות בתפילתה. He mentions 9 times הקדוש ברוך Hu's name. לעומת ההשגחה הפרטית האישית, further against or in relationship to absolute divine individual individual providence. Uberosh Hashanah, now comes Rav Kook and says, Uberosh Hashanah, shekol ba'ei olam ovrim lefanav kivnei maron. Every single one of us comes in front of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We all stand in a queue and we come on the screen of HaKadosh Baruch Hu in Zoom. Okay? HaKadosh Baruch Hu knows everybody. Everybody is on his hard disk of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But on Rosh Hashanah, it doesn't remain in the hard disk. It comes all of a sudden on the screen. There, this individual stands in front of HaKadosh Baruch Hu all by himself. Nobody else is there. He's an individual. It's frightening. Therefore, B'Rosh Hashanah, shekol ba'ei olam ovrim alav nivnav kivnei maron, sidur hashgacha hapratit ha'ishit, absolute divine individual providence. Anu tzrichim la'askil. We need to understand what this means. Ula'amik takarat hashgacha pratit ha'ishit. You have to understand this concept. Leitiv u'leshaper ha'masim ha'pratiyim. To improve our individual behavior. Le'afushei rachamim. And to ask HaKadosh Baruch Hu kol echad al inyanav ha'pratiyim. Gam kein shemizeh tibane atzlachat ha'klal. From the individual comes the cloud. When each individual will succeed. Alken, therefore, nu azet atfilot amken b'mispar 9. That's why he made the tefillah number 9. Chanah started off by saying, women are the prime prayer. People pray. Women teach us how to pray. And Chanah is the woman who taught every single individual how to pray. She taught us what it means, individual divine prophecy. She spoke about her individual parts of her body. She speaks to us as an individual. She teaches us how to cry to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. She teaches us how to think to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And that's why the Haftarah of Chanah becomes the integral part of the prayers on Rosh Hashanah. Without Chanah, we wouldn't know how to daven. We wouldn't know how to daven. And therefore we have these 4 women on Rosh Hashanah who teach us. We have Sarah giving birth to Yitzhak, changes the laws of nature. We have Chanah, we have Rachel mevaka al baneha. Rachel cries. Yaakov Avinu doesn't cry. Rachel cries. She knows how to cry. Chanah teaches us how to daven. And the final woman, Sisra, the mother of Sisra, cries and cries and cries over the child who doesn't fulfill his tafkid, his yi'ud. That, Rabotai, is what I wanted to learn with you Erev Rosh Hashanah. How the tefillah of Chanah becomes the central focus of the davening of Rosh Hashanah. I wish you all Shana Tova, K'tiva v'Chatima Tova, Brachot, a lot of health, a lot of satisfaction from everybody, from the grandchildren, from the families, every single one of you, and hope that in Mitzvah Hashem will answer all our prayers. Thanks very much.